This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Covered in Pet Hair, a boozy show for pet lovers on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Isabel and today I have the pleasure of having a drink and a chat with a licensed therapist and life coach who specializes in grief and loss when it comes to our pets. I will tell you all about her and introduce you as soon as we come back from these messages from our sponsors.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Covered in Pet Hair. I'm your host, Isabel Alvarez-Arada, and today I have the pleasure of having a drink and a chat with a pet parent, a published author, an entrepreneur. She's an adventure seeker, a road tripper, a foodie, wine snob, and coffee lover. She's a world traveler and is currently joining us from Santa Fe. She's a beauty seeker, a cancer survivor/thriver, she says. She's a nature lover, a diehard fan of snail mail. She grew up in the Midwest in Springfield, Illinois. She's lived in Durango, Colorado since 2002. She is wife to Patrick, who she met at a coffee shop called Pure Soul. She's dog mom to Izzy and Charlie. She has a master's degree in social work, and she is the creator of the Rainbow Bridge Pet Loss Deck, licensed therapist and certified life coach specializing in pet loss grief. She is Mindy Meiering. Welcome, Mindy. It's so good to meet you or see you again and have you on the show.
It is so great to be here. I know. It's so fun to be here with you. I feel like we just saw each other, even though
we did.
I know.
It's been a couple months, but I mean, all things considered, it's pretty recent. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll see that my cat, Van Gogh, is getting himself into trouble back here. So if I sneak away for a second, it's to lock him out of my office. But we'll let him stay as long as he doesn't make too much of a mess. So how is Santa Fe treating you? You're vacationing for the weekend?
We are here actually for 2 weeks. This is the longest probably that we've ever spent. We've been wanting to do this for a long time and see what it's like to kind of live and work here versus like spending a weekend or vacationing here. So yeah, we just got here and we're here for 2 weeks. And it's beautiful right now. It's kind of that late fall, still warm, sunny days. Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of sun in the Southwest. So I'm glad that you're getting the sun and not too cold yet, I'm sure. Like, what are you at? Like 60s during the day?
I just got home. I went and grabbed a little drink for our chat, and it was 67 degrees out.
Oh, nice. Perfect. That's perfect. That's about what we're doing here. We're getting to like 72, but I bet the evenings get real cold over there because you guys are in Santa Fe's in the mountain, right? Mountains?
It is. Yeah. So it gets pretty chilly here in the mornings and the evenings. Yeah. Lots of layering. But, you know, this afternoon I was walking around without a jacket. It's really nice.
It's perfect. Well, I want to find out what it is you're drinking because I always ask my guests. But before I do that, I want to introduce our drinking game today. So anybody at home participating in our drinking game, anytime you hear this word,
the secret word is rainbow.
Take a drink of whatever you're enjoying, but please be over 21 in the U.S. to partake in an alcoholic beverage. Never drink and drive, and always drink responsibly. So what is in that delicious cup of coffee or tea that you are enjoying?
Okay, so I went to this little coffee shop I discovered recently. It's called Crash Murder Business, right? Interesting name for a coffee shop. And it's called I wish I could like read the whole menu. This is called the Race of Roadrunners, and it has cacao, local red chili, espresso, cinnamon, and smoked sea salt. It's like this smoky, chocolatey, spicy coffee drink.
That sounds amazing. I love red chili. Obviously, being in El Paso, like I've developed a taste for it. At first, it was in everything. And I was like, why is chili in everything? But I love it so much. That sounds like exactly what I would order if I went to this place. What's it called again?
It's really good. It's called the Race of Roadrunners.
You know what's really funny? When I moved to the Southwest, I didn't realize that roadrunners were actually real animals. I thought it was just like the coyote and roadrunner I had watched on Looney Tunes growing up. So we were downtown El Paso and I saw this little bird looking thing that I was like, what is that? That's so weird looking. And he's like, that's roadrunner.
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's not. That's real. And they're so little because, you know, we think of the roadrunner as so big, but they're so little. Have you seen any yet? Since you've been visiting?
I have. Yeah, I know. And they're so much smaller than you think that they're going to be. Yeah. Yeah. But this coffee shop has all of these. They have another drink called The Loveliness of Ladybugs. They have one called Murmuration of Starlings. Like I was just so enamored with the names of all these coffee drinks.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a super nice place to visit. And like I told you, I want to plan a trip to Santa Fe because I have family in Colorado. Okay. My husband's family is there and they haven't met our kids yet because of the pandemic and all that. So we want to meet halfway, which would be Santa Fe, and do like a few days together. So I will definitely be asking you some tips since you now are like a local.
Yes, I would be happy. Yes, I would be happy.
I'm enjoying something a little stronger than coffee today. I'm having red wine. Cheers. Speaking of in-laws, cheers to my father-in-law who sent me a box of wine from Wall Street Journal Wines. They have excellent wines. This is a French blend. And I am so happy to see you and share a drink with you. It's wonderful to see you again. Cheers.
Yeah.
I always toast because it's bad luck if you don't.
No.
So I always start my show with games. And today we're celebrating Thanksgiving and the spirit of Thanksgiving, because I know not everybody celebrates Thanksgiving, especially we have audience from all over the world, and Thanksgiving is not something that's known maybe outside of Canada and the US, but the spirit of Thanksgiving is something that we really shouldn't be narrowing down to one day a year. Would you agree?
I would. I think that gratitude and that, you know, that spirit of gratitude and giving thanks is something we can spread out throughout the year. But November is typically the month where we think of gratitude more. Yeah.
Yes. A few years ago, maybe it was during the pandemic, the shutdown, I did like a post every day about what I was grateful for. And it definitely puts you in a different place. You know, it helps you understand that not everything is the darkness that you might be feeling at that moment. So I feel like gratitude is something we often go to when we need it, but it's probably a practice we need to get into.
Yeah. Yeah. And given the fact that there is so much heaviness in our world right now, I think that it's even more important to, you know, bring in these practices that help us remember what's going well and the goodness that's in the world too. Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of goodness. I mean, I think that because you're in the pet industry, I'm in the pet industry, we get to see a lot of that goodness every day. Our jobs allow us to connect with people in ways that most jobs don't allow. So we're pretty lucky in that sense. But there's a lot of good. There are a lot of good people. And I always tell my kids, I'm like, when I have to warn them about like stranger danger or like bad people, I always say the vast majority of people are good people, but there are some people we need to be aware of. So that's how I explain it. But I wanted to start the show with a game, and I'm calling it Holiday Feels because Thanksgiving kind of kicks off the holiday season. And I know, and I'm sure you know as a licensed therapist, that the holidays bring up a lot of feelings for people. And so I base this game off of an article by the National Alliance on Mental Health. And they talk about kind of how difficult this time of year can be for people, specifically with mental health concerns. So I want to give two statistics really quickly that I found really interesting. In 2014, the National Alliance on Mental Health found that 64% of people with mental illness say that the holidays make their conditions worse. And a 2021 survey in the midst of the pandemic, so I'm sure that influenced the results, showed that 3 in 5 Americans feel like their mental health is negatively impacted by the holidays. Has that been your experience too?
Definitely. I think that in our culture, there are so many like layers of expectations around the holidays and how they should be. And oftentimes if people are already struggling with some sort of mental health issue, that just gets exacerbated by the extra, expectations, the extra commitments that maybe they feel like they need to engage in. And I think also if people are, feeling lonely or don't have maybe anyone to spend the holidays with, that can also be exacerbated. Yes. Those feelings of loneliness and feeling left out in some way. Yeah,
absolutely. I want to take an opportunity to say that a lot of pet professionals, like pet sitters who don't join their families because they're taking care of pets, often feel that. I remember feeling that when I was a professional pet sitter and my family was gathered in Spain and I was going from pet sit to pet sit and the whole world felt like they were celebrating, but I was not. And it was a choice I had made, obviously, because of my business and because of my career, but it didn't make it any less lonely. So shout out to the pet sitters out there who give so much of themselves to the pets in your care. Always, it feels like giving up your time with your family and loved ones over the holidays. So shout out to you guys. I want to introduce the game again. It's called Holiday Feels. And I'm basically just going to give you some statements that I got from this blog. And I just want you to elaborate from your experience on whether or not you see these things. There's obviously no wrong answers here. I just kind of want to give our audience, maybe they are in a unique situation where they don't feel this way, but I feel like a lot of people might feel validated in hearing that others experience this as well. So here we go. During the holidays, people can experience contradictory emotions.
Absolutely, 100%. I think that it's really common for people to move through the holidays and maybe you have those experiences of feeling joyful or feeling connected with people you love. And the next thing you know, especially like we're going to talk a little bit about grief, a wave of grief might come over you. Maybe someone that you love is not with you anymore. They've died and you're, feeling a wave of grief around that, or you're experiencing, just talked about mental health issues. Maybe you have a pretty good day and you're feeling like, yeah, I really want to go to that holiday party, and you go and you enjoy it. And then a few days later, maybe you're not feeling so great. So it's really common to experience a wide range of emotions. Yeah.
Okay, great. And acknowledging emotions could potentially be a better strategy than judging them in the moment. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just allowing them to be present, and having compassion, really having compassion for yourself if you're having a difficult time or struggling, and instead of like judging that and, saying, I wish this would go away, how can I maybe asking yourself, what do I need right now? If sadness or guilt or a difficult emotion is present.
As a parent, because I have a 6-year-old who struggles with emotional regulation, I've learned a lot about emotions and how they really are neutral. Like, it's just an emotion. There's no weight to them unless there's an action attached to them. But feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling unmotivated, feeling happy, all of those things are just things. They're feelings. They're not good. They're not bad. They just exist. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And remembering that they will pass, too, that sometimes we feel like stuck in an emotion, especially like a difficult emotion, and remembering that, even the ones that feel better, like joy, or when we're feeling happy, like just remembering that our emotions ebb and flow and they don't last. Yeah. That'd be a comforting thought.
That is a very comforting thought, and something I'm going to mention next time there's an emotional exertion or emotional display. in my home. All right, next one. The holidays affect routines and can affect therapy appointments, sleep, and exercise habits.
Yeah, because so often in the holidays, like our routines are disrupted. We may, I say, because everyone is going to have different experiences at the holidays, but there could be extra travel or additional holiday gatherings, parties that disrupt our way of eating. We might be staying up later than usual. Travel, of course, we never know what's going to happen, and that can disrupt our schedule. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting one. I love a boundary, but I'm very comfortable with setting boundaries, but I know not everybody is. This one says healthy boundaries help around the holidays. What kind of boundaries do you think some people might have to set this time of year?
I think being comfortable with saying no, right? So, and being not necessarily comfortable, being comfortable with saying no and okay with the fact that you may disappoint someone by taking care of yourself. So if you're especially, let's say you're really in the throes of like a grieving process, you've lost a pet, you've lost a loved one, and you just don't know how you're going to feel, being okay with saying no to a holiday gathering if that's just something that you don't feel up for. I think another boundary that can be helpful to have is just setting boundaries around making time for your self-care at the holidays. So saying, here's what I'm going to make sure I get. I'll include these other things, but I'm going to make sure I get, X hours of sleep a night. I'm going to make sure I get one healthy meal a day, get 30 minutes of exercise each day, whatever that is for you that you need.
Yes, we know as adults most of the time what we need, and it's very easy to kind of be like, I'm okay. And then 3 days later, we said, I'm okay. And now we're really feeling that lack of exercise or that kind of, eating foods that we're not used to, or overeating or overindulging on wine or whatever it is that we do around the holidays. So definitely it's a good reminder to set some boundaries and protect our mental health and our just physical health. All right, next one is the connection helps mental health, but that's not always the case for everyone around the holidays, where they are almost sometimes forced to connect and it's not always a positive experience. What tips do you have for those that are, expected to connect around the holidays and aren't necessarily looking forward to it?
That I know, and that is a tricky one, right? Because sometimes at family gatherings, we are with people that we're gathering with who might not be the most supportive. And so I think in this situation, I'm going to bring in grief again, but, I call this careful sharing. It's like when you're gathered with those people, be mindful of what you share with them and who you seek support from. Like if you're struggling or grieving, that if it's someone that really doesn't understand, like if you've lost a pet, right? If it's someone that's not an animal lover who doesn't have pets, that might not be the best person to share with.
Yeah.
So be mindful of that. Yeah.
And because connection is so important, and it really is the reason for the season in many ways, how do you recommend people seek out positive connections this time of year?
I would say really think about who those people are in your life. And if you don't feel like you have friends or family who understand your loss, one of the things that I'll often recommend is find a grief support group, or find people that are, there are definitely extra groups around this time of year. I used to work years ago at a hospital, and every Christmas, every holiday season, they would have they called it their blue holiday service. And they would have it was an half of where people that were grieving or had some sort of loss could come together.
Yes.
Yeah. With other people who understood that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. That's some really great tips. I love something that people can take to the bank, so to speak. And these are really great actionable tips. And because I'm so, I from the moment I met you, you just have like a special aura about you. I love your product. That's what connected us. And we're going to talk about that, obviously. But I'd love to know your background. How did you end up where you are today as the creator of the Rainbow Bridge deck and a life coach specializing in pet loss and grief specifically?
So originally, I got my master's in social work, and this was so weird. I feel old saying this. It was almost 30 years ago. Um, and I started my career as a therapist and always was supporting people, in their emotional health. But I did also work in hospitals for a lot of years and supporting people that, around end of life and with serious illness. And then about 16 years into that, I realized it was a pretty high stress job. I mean, it was demanding. I'm like, I don't know that I can do this long term. It was a lot. And I went back, got my training as a coach, transitioned to coaching, and also got certified as a mindfulness teacher. And so I was doing both of those things. And as I was, building that part of my work, I went through a really significant traumatic loss. And this was my first dog I adopted 20 years ago. But when I got married, my husband had a dog. His name was Trek, and Trek died in 2017. And it was pretty traumatic. Like, we knew he wasn't great. We knew there was something going on, but the day he died, we woke up and, it was just he probably had some sort of tumor in his nose and it had ruptured. And so he was wheezing, he could barely breathe. And it was really hard. There was blood all over. And so it was a pretty
Oh my
traumatic.
goodness. I'm so sorry.
And thank you. I mean, I feel so grateful that he didn't have to suffer for very long, right? This happened. It was very sudden, but it was also, we didn't have a lot of time to really prepare because we had just been at the vet like at 4:00 the day before. And she said, we had 3 dogs at the time. She's like, they're all looking great. And so that was my first experience with losing a dog. And then 2 years later, we lost Ellie, and she had been my first dog. And that was a whole other layer of heartbreak. So, losing them both within a pretty short period of time was really hard. And I knew a bit about grief and loss from the work I had done. Experience that personally really had a big impact because they had, when we think about our pets, they journey with us through all these different experiences in our life. And Ellie had been with me through so much. And I was at the time just, undergoing treatment for lymphoma. And
oh my goodness.
she had just kind of been by my side and such a comfort. In addition to, we had so much fun together over the years.
Right.
I mean, she was a feisty, very funny, smart, mischievous little terrier mix. She was a hilarious dog, really, really great dog. And so it was so hard to lose her. And it made me realize after Trek had died, I started writing a book. I wanted to share what I had learned through that experience and how I had used the tools that I had available to me to help me get through that, which then, of course, I was using again after Ellie died. And so I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of the tools I shared in the deck, and I wanted to make those available to people in a really accessible format because I knew even as someone who had those tools, it was still such a painful, painful time. It was a very painful loss. As those of us who have lost pets know. Yes.
Yes. So it started off, from my understanding of your background, it started off as a book, and then it kind of, you put it aside, picked it back up, and it evolved into the Rainbow Bridge deck. Can you describe for those who have never seen the deck what it is?
Yes. Yeah, I have one right here. I'll hold it up. So it's a 52 card deck, and the deck is, I'll just, show people how to open it up. In the bottom of the box, when you take the cards out, there is a little quote that says, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." And I really believe that's true. These animals just really open our hearts and bring so much to our lives. And so the cards in the deck, there are 52, and I'll show you. It's kind of nice. I think in this light, you can see the rainbow gold foil right on the edge. But my friend Amy Frank illustrated each card. So I just am going to pull this one out. So this one is called "Let the Tears Flow." And you can see the there's an illustration on the front of each card, and then the messages that I wrote are on the back. And this one is really about allowing yourselves to cry and how healing that can be after we've had a loss. And so then there's 52 different ways, and the cards talk about different ways that you can honor your pet's memory, and then also very practical coping strategies and things you can do to support yourself as you're grieving. Yeah.
Do you find, because you did 52, do you find that people are using these, like, consuming multiple cards a day, maybe doing one a day for a while? How do you find people using these practically?
All across the board. I have people that will draw one card a week. I have people that say they draw one card a day. I have people that say they sit down and they read all of them. And then they just go and they pick one or two that feel most applicable that day or that week. And I love hearing about the different ways. I have families that will pull a card at dinner together and discuss it with when they have children that are a bit younger, and then they talk about that card and its message. So all different. There's all different ways that you can use it. Yeah.
That is so cool. I love your product. I had been following you on Instagram before. I don't even know how we got connected. Before Super Zoo, I remember walking, I think I posted a video of me kind of in the emerging brands area and walking by and being like, oh, and there's this, like talking to like whatever my followers or whatever. And I saw yours and I say in the video, oh, I know you, I'll be back, because I really I recognized it instantly. I love your messaging. I love the look of the cards. I love the rainbow gold foil. I love that box it comes in. I find that this is not only a wonderful way for self-care, right? Like you buy it for yourself. Like it's not just for gifts. Of course, buy it for yourself, but it's such a thoughtful gift for somebody when maybe for those people who don't have the words to support somebody else, they can send these words. But really, I think it's something every family should have in their home for that day when we inevitably lose our pet or we inevitably lose a loved one.
Thank you. And yeah, it's really interesting. When I published it a little over a year ago, I didn't realize how the majority of people who buy it do buy it as a gift item. And I have quite a few people who order it for themselves, but then a lot of times, and it's so touching because people will send me the notes that they want to send to their friends, and I write out a handwritten note with each deck that I send out. And it has become a really a gift item, because I think when, unlike when humans die, when pets die in our culture, and I'm sure that you've heard this also, there's so much that's been written about this. People will often say it was as hard, if not more difficult, than when I lost a human loved one. But we don't have the rituals and the supports in place in our culture to support people around pet loss the same way that we do, with the loss of a human loved one. So I think that things like this can be, the deck can be a really helpful tool for people so that they feel less alone and have some support.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that it's a wonderful product. I want to get more into your just kind of outlook on pet grief and loss and the holidays. We'll take a break right here. And when we come back, Mindy is going to help us get an attitude of gratitude as we go into the holidays, especially if we're still mourning the loss of a beloved pet. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. cattreetray.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Covered in Pet Hair. I'm your host, Isabel Alvarez-Arata, and today I'm having a wonderful conversation with Mindy Meiering of the Rainbow Bridge deck. She has created a pet loss deck of cards that is absolutely beautiful, makes a wonderful gift, and most importantly, is a tool that pet parents can use to cope with the grief of losing a pet. Mindy, I love your product. I've said it so much, but I also love your whole attitude on just embracing the grief that comes with pet loss, using, tools like the ones you've provided. And one of them is gratitude. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into gratitude as a tool in our next game, which is called Attitude of Gratitude, where I'm going to give you 2 minutes on my handy dandy clock. And I want you, if you're game, to give us 10 practical ways to have an attitude of gratitude around the holidays that will help us if we are in the throes of pet loss and grief. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Notice what brings you joy and delight. So it could be the littlest thing. It might be like noticing a cookie or piece of candy that you loved as a kid, or, watching a child take in something that's delighting them around the holidays. But notice what brings you joy and delight. Really pay attention. Pay attention. I would say gratitude is a mindfulness practice. So pay attention to what you're feeling grateful for. And it can be the tiniest of things. It doesn't have to be anything big. A gratitude journal is another way. And so that's more of a classic way where you write down 5 things that you're feeling grateful for. And with this, I always say, be specific. So we often say, and of course, it's genuine. We say we're grateful for our family, our friends, our health. Be specific. Like, I'm grateful that, my daughter got up and made me coffee this morning before I got up. Or I'm grateful that my husband took out the trash this morning and I didn't have to go out in the cold. Or, be specific when you're thinking about what makes you feel grateful. That can be very helpful. Other ways to practice gratitude. One fun thing for families to do is to share it at the dinner table, the way that we do at Thanksgiving, but to make that a ritual that you do every day, where everyone shares one thing that they feel grateful for. Another practice, and this can be particularly helpful if we're going through a challenging time, is to really pay attention to where support comes from. Like, who are the people in your life, the resources that are feeling supportive? Maybe it's a grief support group, or your neighbor, or a friend that's brought you a meal, or has just been a really caring, compassionate listening ear.
Yeah.
So paying attention to where support shows up for you.
Well, that's 2 minutes plus. So great job. I love that. I love the idea of using that gratitude practice at the dinner table. I actually have a hard time coming up with, and I don't know why this never occurred to me, but I always ask my kids at the dinner table, how was your day? Blah, blah, blah. But they never have anything to say because they're so little. So getting them into a practice of just answering a question, what are you grateful for right now? And it could be their Barbie and it could be their, monster truck, but it's still that practice that we get into, and that it's a skill I think we have to learn. Would you agree that it's a skill?
It is absolutely, it's like a muscle, right? So when we are building our gratitude muscle, the more consistently we do it, it's going to help build that, help strengthen that muscle. And the question, one thing that just came to mind is that another way of framing it, and this could even work with at the dinner table conversations, you could say, what's one good thing that happened in your life today, right? Because it's usually that one good thing is something that we'll feel thankful for. And that can be another.
True. Yeah, that's easier for little ones to grasp too, right? Yes, absolutely. I love that. So would you agree that grief tends to feel harder during the holidays, particularly pet loss and grief?
Yes, I would, because grief is, we're missing, right? So often when we've had a loss and we've lost a pet, we're missing them and our hearts are hurting. We're moving through that grieving process. And it can feel like everyone around us is, feeling full of joy except for us,
Yes,
which is not
exactly.
true, of course, but it can feel that way. And there's such a disconnect because the holidays are, one of my least favorite holiday songs is It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year.
Right. Yes.
Because it's really not for most people. It's, holidays can contain so many joyful moments, but they're actually can be a pretty stressful time. And yes, if we're grieving, when there's that expectation to be happy, to be joyful, and we don't feel that way, it can feel pretty icky.
I heard on the radio yesterday that January is actually referred to by attorneys as divorce month. So for those thinking that they're the only ones feeling like it's not such a wonderful time of the year, apparently the holidays are so stressful for some couples that throughout the year, the month that has the most divorces filed is January. So you are not alone if you're feeling stressed, because the stress is serious for everybody. It is something that is, I think, universal, even in the best of situations.
Well, and just think about we talked about this a little bit earlier in our conversation. Our schedules are
Yes.
disrupted, additional commitments, and then travel. And for so many of us, it's winter here in the U.S.,
Yes.
And so I'm just even thinking about last year, our plans got disrupted because of all the winter storms. And so, that can be like a whole added layer of stress on top of the fact that we're grieving if we've lost a pet.
Absolutely. It really is a hard time. And we're kind of sometimes forced to connect with people that don't make us feel better. So it's just, there's a lot of layers. And I'm so happy we're talking about this, because I feel like pet grief, as I'm sure you have experienced, is not given the weight that it deserves in like a family gathering or in a situation where people just don't get it. And we've all heard it's just a cat, it's just a dog, it's just this, let's move on. A lot of times people feel like they're under pressure to move on. What would you say to those people who feel like now I have to shake it off and put on a happy face?
I would say that grief takes as long as it takes. And I know that's a fairly simplistic statement, but it's very true. We can't put a timeline on our grief. And that goes back to, I think, that careful sharing and being mindful about who we share with when people want us to move on. And I find that some people are ready to bring a new pet into their lives sooner than others, but we all have our own timeline in terms of how long that takes us to move through our grief to get to that point when and if we do feel ready, to bring another pet in, and that it's okay to take that time. It's okay. There's a way in which we really rush grief in our culture.
Yes.
And it's okay to take your time is what I would tell people. It's okay.
I love that. I love the boundary setting of the careful sharing. I love the idea that you're giving people permission to withhold that part of them from people that aren't going to support. Because sometimes I feel like we are forced to share with people that we don't really want to be vulnerable with. And sharing your grief is a very intimate part of you that you share with someone. It doesn't have to be shared at the dinner table at Thanksgiving. It doesn't have to be something that you mention. And if you can't tolerate it, say that it's really hard, what tips do you have for someone who's in the midst of a family gathering, a friend gathering, a work gathering, and is feeling like the emotions are bubbling up? What would you say? What practical tips can you give them?
I think that one of the practical tips that I would say is that it's okay to leave early. It's okay to leave early. That if you've chosen to go to a gathering and all of a sudden it feels like too much, it's okay to say, thank you so much. This has been lovely. And I'm just not feeling well. I need to leave early. No explanation necessary. And going back to what I said earlier, this doesn't necessarily apply to this situation, but giving yourself permission to say no to certain gatherings if you think they're going to be really difficult. Just for this holiday season, it feels like too much. Yeah.
That's beautiful. It feels like too much for me right now is an explanation. It is a nice explanation. It is kind. And there's no need to further elaborate. Would you agree?
I would agree. There's a writer, her name is Anne Lamott, and she's a spiritual writer. She's hilarious, but she said, no is a complete sentence.
Yes. No is a complete
No.
sentence. Because it's the holidays, you can finesse it a little bit, but at the end of the day, no is a complete sentence. I completely agree. So tell me no thank you is plenty. So how can my audience learn more about the Rainbow Bridge deck itself? Where can they get it? And just anything else that we can learn about you and how to follow you and support this awesome brand and business that you've built.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. And I told you this before we started recording, but talking about gratitude and the way that we can bring that in, I think it can be such a support as we're grieving. It's really a joy to be here to talk about this with you. It's a topic that's so meaningful to me. So thank you. And yes, people can go to rainbowbridgedeck.com to purchase the deck online. And they can also, on that website, there's a list of retail sites that it's available in the US. And each deck, I will say, one of the things that I love is that with each deck that I am the one that packages them up and sends them out. And I send out a little handwritten note with each deck if you're gifting it to someone. And then I also have a coaching website that's Mindy Meiering. And maybe you could put that in the show notes because my name is a little difficult to spell.
Absolutely. I will definitely put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have had it already pop up. But yes, what kind of coaching do you do? Is it mostly pet loss and grief, or do you do other kinds of coaching?
Yeah, I've done all kinds of life coaching. And I always say that when people ask me what kind of clients I work with, I just really love working with people that are committed to their personal and professional growth. So I've coached all kinds of entrepreneurs. I coach mainly women, and just really helping people connect with, what feels true and where, like, for them, and helping them kind of tune into, their heart's desires and how they can be true to those. And so, no, I do general life coaching. And then I also, over the last few years, I did a training through the Association of Pet Loss and Bereavement a few years ago, and became a pet loss and grief specialist and do pet loss and grief coaching now also.
Well, I just want to propose a toast to you for sharing your insights with us and helping everyone's holiday season be a little bit more peaceful, filled with gratitude, and giving us really take home practical tips to exit when we need to do so. So cheers. Thank you for that.
Cheers. Yes. And I have actually a card in my deck that's called Say a Prayer. And would it be okay if I read it to close?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to hold this up. It's little hands in prayer. And it says, after losing a pet, one of the most powerful prayers we can say is one of gratitude, a prayer of thanks for the precious time we shared with them. You might light a candle and say these words. Thank you for the time we had together and all you went through with me. My heart is filled with gratitude for the connection, love, and experiences we shared. Thank you for being such a cherished friend and companion. Or you can create your own prayer of gratitude.
Beautiful. I love that. To all the pet, I think that the only thing we're all going to connect on as pet parents at one point or another, unfortunately, is their loss. So to the pet parents who are grieving, to the pets who have gone ahead to the Rainbow Bridge, we shall see you when we get there. And to all the people who are having a hard Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's, we see you, we hear you, and we send you all the love, all the peace, and all the best for the next year ahead. So cheers to everybody who's listening. Cheers to my executive producer, Mark Winter. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today for this conversation. I so appreciate. I hope you have enjoyed Mindy as much as I have. And if you want to learn more about Mindy, please follow her. And if you want to learn more about Covered in Pet Hair, please visit coveredinpethair.com or petliferadio.com. And we'll finish with a traditional toast. Here's to a life covered in pet hair, because there's no better way to live. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you again for watching, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, whether your family and loved ones are near or far. Our hearts go out to everybody with lots of gratitude, lots of love, and lots of positive vibes. So cheers, and take very good care. Happy Thanksgiving.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand. only on PetLifeRadio.com.